Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm your friendly neighborhood lesbian and I'm going to recommend some queer books to you. Some of these are some of my personal favorites. Some of them I think are some of the best novels ever written, and some of them are banned books. So we are going to talk banned books a little bit at the end, but hopefully you can find a new book somewhere in here, and if you don't, maybe you have something to share about another book and we can chat in the comments. Before we get started, I want to do a little shout out to an organization that I think is really cool and really relevant right now. This is the Queer Liberation Library. They are a nonprofit library based in the US, and their purpose is to make sure that even if you're in an area that is really censoring queer books and information, that you can still access that information. They're 100% online, and if you live in the US, if you have a US mailing address, you can get a card for free. They have a great collection, and they are just fabulous. I have a card. I've had a card for a few years now. If you follow them on Tumblr, they're always giving book recommendations and curating lists of books in different genres and tropes. Check them out. Get a card. They are great, and they are here to help you. I want everyone to know that they exist. I don't know why I feel like this is coming across threatening. I don't mean it in a threatening way, but also, get a card. It's free. It's free. Support them. They're cool. I have about 18 books or authors to recommend to you all. Before we talk about those 18 books and authors, I feel like we need to ask the question, why should we read queer books? Just because if you're in the US, because of the political climate right now, because Pride Month is kind of sad all the time now. I'm sure a lot of the people who are watching this video, you already read queer books or you're looking to start. I don't have to convince you. But on the off chance that someone new is here, someone that is just curious, here's my answer for you. And I'm gonna use myself as an example because I am also guilty of this. We are all guilty of this. I'm a lesbian, based off the colors you can see, plus my fish, my lesbian fish. The books I'm interested in are obviously going to reflect my experiences. I'm way more interested in books that center around women and women that love women, because those are my experiences. But let's say that someone recommends me a book and it's written by a gay man and it's about gay men. The main characters are gay men. Any genre, fill in, it doesn't matter. My initial reaction may be, I don't have anything in common with this author or these characters. Why should I read this book? What do I gain from it? Should I still read it? And the answer that I'll give you is, yeah, if I think I'll like it, I should still read it. That shouldn't stop me. Some of the best books I've ever written have been from people who are completely different from me, who have a different gender, who have a different sexuality, who have a different racial background, who come from a different country, who speak a different language. These things don't stop me from relating to characters in books. I have probably missed out on some books because I have seen who the characters are and what the focus of the book is and thought that has nothing to do with me and have moved on to another book. That reaction, it isn't based in a whole lot of fact. It isn't based in a whole lot of evidence, because anytime I've read a book by someone who has a different identity than me, those differences have been very, very minor. In many cases, they actually show me where those differences actually are, why they matter, and what I personally can do to be a more meaningful ally. Short version, reading books by people different from you, it makes you way more empathetic and knowledgeable, and it gives you better ways to connect with other people. If you're encountering something that makes you uncomfortable, that is new, that you kind of feel a little bit of an aversion to, the best thing you can do for yourself is sitting with it and going, okay, why do I feel this way? What about this is making me uncomfortable? And maybe there are legitimate reasons, like maybe I read a book and there's body horror in it, and body horror makes me uncomfortable. And I'm like, I understand why this is the way it is. I can't personally read it. That's one thing. But maybe as I'm doing this work, I realize I have some internalized bias, some internalized prejudice that I want to deal with, but I've never had an opportunity to before. Step out of your comfort zone a little bit. read books that you don't think, you know, maybe you're not the target audience for. Maybe you'll learn something. And even if you don't, you read a book. Reading a book is never bad. Now that we know, we should be reading queer books. What are some good queer books? Let's get into it. So I'm going to start with some of my favorite queer books. Many of these I think are just universally good. Some of these I only think they're good because I read them at the right time. So take that what you will. You're gonna learn some things about me today. So I am gonna start with the first gay book I think I ever read, and that is The Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily M. Danforth, which, fun fact, the reason that I read this book, the only reason that I had it at the right time, was because a couple of family friends of my parents, who were a lesbian couple, gave me this book. I still have it, it's back here, at the ripe age of 12 years old, but I didn't start questioning my sexuality until I was 14/15. So you can never hurt my feelings because I was read to filth at 12 years old by an old butch lesbian. Like nothing will ever top that to me. So this book is pretty well known at this point. There was a movie made out of it in 2018, I believe, which was around when I read it. I actually don't think I've seen the movie. I don't think my heart could handle that. The basic premise of it is it's a coming-of-age story about a young woman who's a lesbian and living in a very conservative town. The first kind of half of the book is her dealing with grief over her parents dying in a car crash, and the same night that they die in the car crash is the same night she kisses a girl for the first time. And then the second half is she's sent to conversion therapy because she gets caught with another woman by her conservative aunt. I read this book when I was 16. It was a time when I wasn't really reading books. And anytime I did, it took me like a month to get through, you know, like 300-page book. I devoured this book in 3 days, and I think I cried so hard that I almost threw up. I had a religious out-of-body experience reading this book. And honestly, it's because I read it at just the right time when I needed a book like that. I was 16. I was experiencing my first, like, real substantial crush on a girl who I'm pretty sure was straight. I have pretty accepting parents, but I was also raised Catholic, and I was living in a really conservative small town. There were like 70 people in my class. I couldn't really talk about this with anyone, even though like I kind of intellectually knew that there was nothing wrong about what I was feeling, what I was experiencing. I still had like the internalized homophobia around me that just made this whole thing just feel so shameful, and like there was something truly wrong with me, which is really sad when you say it out loud. But having a book like that at that period in my life made me feel so seen in a way that I'm not sure any of my peers could. So that's really why it's always going to be one of my favorites, because I read it at just the right time. Just the right time for it to matter and really make an impact. So, yeah, here it is. And it will always be on this fucking shelf. So, next one is a far more recent book. It's Our Wives Under the Sea by Julia Armfield. This is a horror novel. It is about a lesbian couple, Leah and Miri. Leah is a deep sea diver, and she returns from a dive that kind of went wrong with all these weird physical and psychological symptoms, and Mary is trying to take care of her. And it's the classic like came back wrong type of story, like Pet Sematary. But I put it on this list because I think it is just such a good example of queer horror. A lot of horror focuses, especially monster horror, focuses on the other. These are people or creatures who are on the fringes of society, who are different from everyone else. I mean, Dracula and Frankenstein, classic examples, but also Psycho and Carrie by Stephen King. The monster is just someone who is atypical and outside of society. Well, who else has traditionally been on the fringes of society? It's queer folks. So queer horror takes those monster stories and turns them around so that the monster isn't actually the antagonist of the story, isn't actually the threat. In Our Wives Under the Sea, instead of Monster Leah being this evil entity that needs to be defeated, the story is focused more on Mary's grief and letting Leah go. So the horror isn't the monster, it's the grief. It's so sad. It's very sad, but I think it is a really just great example of queer horror as a genre. So that's why I included it. So next is Nimona by N.D. Stevenson. This is a graphic novel. It was turned into a Netflix original movie later on. Both of them are great in different ways. So I recommend, if you're into graphic novels, read the graphic novel. If you're not, watch the movie. Witness both. It's so good. It's so good. Nimona is a shapeshifter. She usually takes on the form of a human girl, but she can take on anything. She's really kind of treated in like the fandom space, at least, as a like gender fluid character. So she finds a disgraced knight and wants to be a sidekick. The knight is like evil, but he's more anti-establishment, and he does have his own code of right and wrong, whereas Nimona is just impulsive, and she kind of operates from the mindset of, they're gonna call me a monster no matter what I do, I might as well like own it. So again, it like deals with the concept of the queer person as the other, as on the fringes of society, as a monster. A lot of people have resonated with the story because of experiences that Nimona has. And it also tackles the idea that hate isn't natural, it isn't born, it's taught. So people are taught to fear Nimona specifically, they're taught to fear monsters. So it is so good. The movie made me cry, and it's an animated movie for children. So there's a lot of crying going on. There's a lot of sadness. There's some in here that aren't sad, I promise. So next, Felix Ever After by Case and Callender. I read this book as part of a class. It was a gender studies class, and the professor assigned it because she said she believed it was good for introducing students who were new to gender studies to a lot of concepts around identity and sexuality. And I absolutely agree with her. This book, when I read it, I was like, oh, these were the things. I wish I had this book when I was 16, because these were the questions I was asking when I was 16. It's a YA coming-of-age story about a trans boy experiencing love for the first time. It's very sweet, very cute. The characters are very lovable, and it very much feels very authentic from, you know, a teenager who is exploring identity and romance for the first time. A lot of people benefit from reading about those experiences because, like I said earlier, I didn't really get to experience those things openly when I was in high school because there was so much taboo around it. I think it's great, and I would recommend it. And if you're new to queer lit, it's a great place to start. So next is a nonfiction one. I think this is the only nonfiction one on my personal list. This is 5 Quarts, A Personal Natural History of Blood by Bill Hayes. This is a part science nonfiction book and a part memoir. Bill Hayes wrote this for his partner, who had been HIV positive for I think their entire relationship. So he spent a lot of time thinking about blood just in general, because the rules that they had around like his partner getting wounded in the kitchen were just very different from if you're not living with someone who's HIV positive. So there's great information in here about the AIDS epidemic, some just other science history about blood, and I think it's really cool because there has been so much literature about the AIDS epidemic, but not a lot of it is from the perspective of the people who were at the center of it, who were directly affected by it. So I still have this book, it's over there. I read it as part of a class, again, but it was a really good read, and I still think about it regularly. I even referenced it in the vampire video essay I did back in October. Highly recommend if you're more of a nonfiction person. So lastly, another sad one. I'm sorry. This is On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vyong. This is another one that I read for class. I'm convinced that this is going to be required reading one day, probably only in college. Yes, like this book should be taught. It's a novel written by a poet. It's chock full of imagery and symbolism. Like every sentence feels very intentional. The main premise is that the main character is writing a letter to his mother about his life story, but she can't read, and so she's never actually going to learn his life story. It tackles everything. It tackles immigration, race, the Vietnam War, poverty, toxic masculinity, drug use, and queerness, of course, because it's on this list. It really handles the intersection between race and queerness very well. I've read it 3 times now, and every time I read it, I find something new to just appreciate about it. So if you take nothing else away from this list, if you only have to pick one book, this is the book that I would recommend. Like, this is the one that I think is perfect. So next, we're gonna look at some of our classical queers, some of our queer elders, some of the people who came before us, and, you know, made it just that much easier to exist in this world, despite not being straight or cis. Full disclosure, this is doing a little bit of guesswork on my part and the parts of the websites I visited to gain this information, to like double check. I don't think that it is worth trying to assign labels to historical figures. Labels change so much over time. Our understanding of sexuality and gender change over time. We have no way of knowing for sure, and I'm not gonna try and guess. The authors I've included here are primarily ones that had same-sex relationships that we know about. This is by no means exhaustive. So if you have some others to add, you can please add them in the comments. And I'll just, you know, before I get into it, I'll share this one comment that one of my professors made, in which we were talking about The Merchant of Venice, and at some point he went, you know, is Shakespeare bisexual? Who knows? And then just moved on and did not add anything else to it. And then 2 years later, I took a class that was literally all about queerness in Shakespeare, and it never came up. So you never know. You never know. I'm gonna start with the 2 that I know pretty well because I studied them in class. Ha ha ha. Me and my English degree. Top of the list, Gertrude Stein. Gertrude Stein had a life partner who was a woman. Her name was Alice B. Toklas. She was also known to have relationships with other women. Stein was a modernist writer, meaning she was playing with literary form at the time, and a lot of her work asked the question, what is a novel? Her style is basically all summary and no scene. Scene would be person A said X, person B said Y. Person B and A are now going to do this. That's scene. You're right there. It is happening right now. And then summary would be person A and B talking about this, and then they went and did that. We're more used to seeing scene in literature nowadays, and for that reason, I think that Gertrude Stein can be a little difficult to read. She's an incredible author, and she's very, very smart and very well regarded, even in her own time. If you want to read her, but you're not really sure where to start, I would start with her poetry. I think her poetry is a little bit easier just because it's more short form, and then you can work up to reading 3 Lives, which is what I read in college, and it's very good. Yeah, she's a genius, and she is absolutely worth reading, but she is very different from like contemporary novels. Then I'm gonna recommend Gloria Anzaldúa. She is a Chicana writer who's written in just about every genre, so no matter what you like, there's probably something there for you. I know her best from her essays. She has done a lot of work in feminist, Latinx, and immigration theory, and she has at different times described herself as a lesbian, but also said this label does not fully capture her. She has done a lot of work on the fluidity of sexuality and writes about her experiences as a queer woman of color. And then here's some others that I'm not as familiar with, but people get mad at me if I don't add them. That was kind of a joke. I am doing this to myself. So, Virginia Woolf. She had several affairs with women. Orlando, a biography, was inspired by Vita Sackville West, whom she had a close relationship with. Vita Sackville West is also a writer you can check out. Tennessee Williams, if you like plays and scripts. Most of his close relationships were with men. And then I'm putting these two together because when I read them together. But that's Audre Lorde and Bell Hooks. For anyone interested in lit crit and essays, they are most well known for intersectional feminism. So if you're interested in that, please check them out. They're the people. They're the people to read about if you are interested in that. Obviously, Oscar Wilde. However gay you think the picture of Dorian Gray is, it is still gayer. It is still gayer somehow. That's obviously not a comprehensive list. If you have more, please add them in the comments. This doesn't even really address authors who were questioning their gender. Queer people have always existed, and you will find them if you look for them. So now let's talk banned books. The data I'm pulling is from the ALA. I had to do a little bit more work this year than last year because for some reason ALA wasn't showing why the books were challenged most commonly on their website, but they collect data every year about the top 10 most banned books in America. Go check those out. Most of the time that books are banned, lately at least, it's because they tackle race, they have too much sexual content, or they have too much violence. And sexual content often disproportionately targets queer folks. I feel like people will kind of argue that if it has a queer person, it has sexual content, which is not true and should not be the case. But alas, here we are. There were 11 books listed for 2025. These are all the ones that were challenged because of LGBTQ+ themes or characters, as far as I can tell. At number 2, we have The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. At number 3, we have Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe. Tied at 5, we have The Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Melinda Lowe and Tricks by Ellen Hopkins. And at 8, we have Identical by Ellen Hopkins. If you want to support a library, those are some great books to check out, to show your support of those books, to make sure that anyone who wants to read them can, despite the will of the censors. Because remember, the majority of people do not want books being challenged and removed from libraries. The majority of people support the freedom to read. In 2025, 92% of challenges were issued by pressure groups. These are small groups of people who have way too much time on their hands and way too much hate in their hearts, who go around the country, find books that they disagree with at different libraries and schools, and they tell the school board to remove them. Essentially, they are not part of your community. They do not know your family. They do not know the people in your community. They don't know the teachers. They don't know the context of any of this. They're just going around and trying to control what books are available. So the best thing that you can do to combat censorship is on the community level, to show up for the people in your community, for the teachers and for the librarians, and show them that you support them. And this can be as small as going to your library and checking out a book, preferably a banned one, or it can be as big as participating in school boards and library advisory boards. Your voice is powerful in your community. Make sure you use it. I will also leave some links to the ALA and I think PEN America is the other one, about their resources for dealing with banned books, and you can also find some more banned books if you'd like that. So that's it. Those are all the books I have for you. Hopefully you found something new. If you didn't, maybe you have a new book for me, you can leave in the comments. Let me know the queer books that changed your life. Let me know some of your favorite queer authors. I hope everyone is having a good Pride Month. I hope you all stay safe, and I hope that you all are reading some good books this month. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next week.